Hello, this is Yohhannes, and I am Professor of Political Science at the University of Applied Sciences, Campus Vienna, and a lecturer at the University of Vienna. I am a specialist in Latin American studies and Global South studies, and I am also working as a lecturer at the Diplomatic Academy, where I am giving an advanced seminar every year on the topic of EU, Latin America, and Global South relations. Likewise, I am a fellow, visiting fellow at the State University of Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, where I am regularly giving seminars, and I am also supervising master and doctoral theses. I would like today talk about some global aspects of international relations from a Latin American perspective. I have done this many years basically through research projects in Latin America, in the Caribbean, about international relations within the continent and beyond the continent, focusing on issues of conflict studies, development issues, and also political current affairs. I did also some research in Palestine, particularly in Gaza, where I carried out, together with the Al-Azhar University and the Civitas Institute, several research projects on the topic of the ongoing conflict in the region. And I'm very happy today to present to you some current affairs. As I said, I will bring them to you through Latin American and Caribbean perspective. Thank you. First, I want to talk about the Ukraine-Russia war from a Latin American perspective. Latin American countries so far have not imposed any sanctions against Russia due to the fact that they have invaded Ukraine. This is in line with most other Global South countries in Africa and in Asia that also have not imposed any sanctions against Russia. So there is normal trade between these countries, Latin American countries, Global South countries, and Russia, in contrast to the so-called Western world. When it comes to the UN resolutions, most of the countries in Latin America have voted in favor of resolutions that called on a withdrawal of Russian troops from Ukraine. So in most cases, they backed up the Western position in the UN in order to support resolutions against Russia. There are very few exemptions, and these are the countries of Cuba, Nicaragua, Bolivia that abstained against these resolutions, or just left the room, as this was the case of Venezuela. The positioning of Latin American countries towards the Russian invasion into Ukraine is divided. First of all, as I said, most of the countries in Latin America condemn the intervention. On the other hand, no sanctions. Why is there reluctance not to mingle too much into this conflict? From the Latin American perspective, there is one obvious historical reason. Latin American countries have suffered many interventions from the US in the 19th and in the 20th century, sometimes even with regime changes like in Chile or in Guatemala or in other parts of Latin America. So there is a high appreciated principle of non-intervention there. That is the reason why they are not really openly supporting the invasion of Russia. On the other hand, they want to maintain up to a certain point a neutral position between the two blocs, Russia on the one hand and the Chinese position, and then the Western position. So in order basically to have a balanced relationship, including economic interests, to all blocs, and to all major players. That's another aspect why there is this reluctance to get involved directly with the conflict partners and to take a clear side. So they, on the other hand, up to a certain point, have a balanced position. But now we have to look a little bit closer to the different countries. So there is, on the one hand, the big players in Latin America, Brazil and Mexico, that try to advance up to a certain point until our days, and initiatives that try to make peace. It will be very interesting to see how they position themselves now with this peace initiative carried out by President Trump. So far, the Latin American countries, but also the African countries, had peace initiatives on the ground, which were not really observed in the Western media, but Lula and also the previous president of Mexico, López Obrador, tried to bring the conflict partners to a table of negotiation. On the other hand, countries like Cuba, Nicaragua, and Venezuela, all three countries under an authoritarian left-wing regime, tried to side with Russia up to a certain point on a rhetoric level, but also it has to do with research, with economic issues and interests. The third country that is up to a certain point interesting and also different from these two positions, that is Argentina. With the new president Milei, he backed up the Ukraine side much more than the Russian side. So there we can see a clear alignment with Ukraine. So we have in that part unusual member of the Latin American community. All other countries that I have not mentioned try to maintain a neutral position and try not to involve directly in the conflict. The second topic I would like to address from a Latin American perspective is the Gaza situation in Palestine and the Palestinian question in general. First of all, Latin American countries, as in the case of the Ukraine war, have not the same position as Western countries. As they have no sanctions against Russia, they are also clearly on the Palestinian perspective and side when it comes to the current conflict between Palestine, Gaza, and Israel. This has a long-standing tradition in Latin America, since most Latin American countries, leaders and population perceive the Israeli-Palestine conflict as a conflict where the Palestinian side need the support of Global South countries like Latin America, because they have experienced also a fight for independence and the reconstruction of a nation independently from a colonial power. So there is some relationship in this perspective seen by the Latin American people and also politicians and countries. On the other hand, it is also clear from the Latin American perspective that Israel has a right to exist and Palestine has a right to exist. So up to a certain point, the two-state solution for most Latin American countries seems the most viable solution. This goes so far that some of Latin American countries have already recognized officially Palestine as the legitimate state of the Palestinian people. In the current situation of the Israeli war or military campaign in Gaza, there are some diplomatic moves. Brazil and Colombia endorsed South Africa's genocide claim against Israel at the International Court of Justice. Bolivia has cut diplomatic ties with Israel entirely. And some other countries have recalled their ambassadors from Israel. On the other hand, you have also to take into consideration there is a quite large Palestinian diaspora in Latin America, Palestinian and also Lebanese diaspora mainly, estimated around 600,000 to 1 million people. They live in Argentina and in Chile mainly, but you can find Palestinian communities all over the Latin American countries. As I said, most of the Latin American countries have recognized the state of Israel officially, and there are a lot of civil society protests in Latin America against the war and the invasion of Gaza by Israel. At the same time, several major countries have also announced the delivery of humanitarian aid in Gaza. In the voting procedure in the UN, most Latin American countries have voted in favor of a ceasefire regarding the war in Gaza. And as I already pointed out, there are several critical voices against Israel, but there is also some exceptions to this, mainly in Argentina. Due to its large Jewish community, there is also some restraints in criticizing only Israel, but also they acknowledge obviously the fact of the victims of the October 7th attack by Hamas, and so this has something to do with the involvement also of the citizens of Argentina as victims of that attack from the October 7th.